She was all colors, painting dreams on paper. He was all numbers, calculating equations, and ignoring distractions. But fate seated them together in detention and, suddenly, logic met chaos, and their hearts found the perfect formula. They say that opposites attract, but in the case of the art girl and the math boy, it was more like chaos and order attracted each other's gravitational pull. How can infinite be so drawn to finite? That was the question that kept him up at night, the very question that made her nights infinitely better. Her name was Amara, which meant eternal in Greek. A fitting name for someone whose spirit was as free and limitless as the sky. He knew her as the girl who painted the sunset on the side of the school building. Every morning he'd walk past her masterpiece, marveling at how something so colorful could exist in a world governed by such rigid rules. His name was Ronan, which ironically meant little seal in Irish. A fitting name for someone who hid behind numbers and formulas like a little boy hiding from the world in his mother's cape. He saw her as a distraction, a kaleidoscopic disruption to his perfectly ordered life. But fate, it seemed, had a wicked sense of humor. It paired them up for detention, locking them in a room full of ticking clocks with nothing but a table, 2 chairs and a single pad of watercolor paper between them. The room was silent except for the ticking clocks, the only sound more deafening than the roar of a crowd. He pulled out his mechanical pencil and started sketching the clock on the paper, each line precise and unwavering. Just like him, she pulled out her watercolors and started painting the same clock, each stroke as fluid and free as her. His clock was perfect, symmetrical, a masterpiece of precision. Her clock was an explosion of color and emotion, a study in contrasts. When they were done, he looked at hers and then back at his own drawing. For the first time, he saw the clock not as a set of rigid lines and angles, but as a design element, a piece of art. She looked at his drawing and saw not just a clock, but a map, a roadmap to the most intricate and beautiful city she'd ever seen. The silence between them was no longer deafening. It was pregnant with possibilities. They spent the next hour lost in their art, 2 different languages expressing 2 different realities, yet somehow communicating a harmony that neither of them had ever known existed. When the bell rang, signaling the end of their sentence, he looked up at her, mesmerized by the way the afternoon light caught the gold in her hair, making it look like spun sugar. She looked down at her paper, blushing, realizing that she'd never drawn anything for anyone before, let alone the boy who had the most beautiful eyes she'd ever seen. He gathered his things, his heart beating faster than he'd ever imagined a heart could beat, and walked toward the door. She watched him go, wondering if she'd ever see those golden flecks in his eyes again. Outside, in the crowded hallway, he turned toward her classroom, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He paused, took a deep breath, and knocked on her door. Startled, she looked up from her desk and smiled. Was this the beginning of their story or just the end of detention? Only fate knew the answer. But one thing was certain, the art girl and the math boy were about to make their own rules. So what do you think? Are you team watercolor or team mechanical pencil? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to follow for more stories like this one. Until next time, keep creating your own masterpieces, whether they're on paper or in your heart. And remember, sometimes the best equations are the ones you never thought you could solve. Thanks for watching. See you next time. If you like the story, subscribe my channel and hit like button and share to your friends. Thank you.